Many cruisers just hit the add insurance at checkout without knowing what they're actually buying. $200 policy can save a $10,000 vacation, but it can also do absolutely nothing if you don't know exactly what you're buying. Today, we're going to talk about cruise insurance. Stay tuned. Hi everyone, Rob from Cruise Seekers, and welcome to our Cruise Deal Show. Today we are going to talk about travel insurance. But before we get into all the information that you need to know about travel insurance, I want to thank each and every one of you folks who have become a member of this Cruise Seekers community by hitting that subscribe button. Thank you so much for doing that. It is so appreciated by us. And if you're new here, or you kind of been just lurking around for a little bit now, think about subscribing, turn that notification bell on. It is so appreciated by us. Thank you so much for doing that. And while you're down there, hit that like button. It does help that YouTube algorithm. It does help this community grow. Thank you for doing that as well. Okay, with that stuff out of the way, let's talk a little bit about what we're going to kind of break down when it comes to cruise insurance. First off, we're going to talk about the declarations. We're going to talk about the different types of insurances there are, cancel for any reason, cancel for work reasons, as well as individual and full annual policies. We're also going to talk a little bit about the differences between a third-party insurer versus purchasing your insurance from the cruise lines. So let's first talk a little bit about the declaration page and exactly what you are getting when you are purchasing insurance and what each one of those little areas mean and what it covers. Okay, trip cancellation versus trip interruption. What are the differences between these two things? Well, first off, trip cancellation basically covers you before you even step foot on the ship, before the vacation even begins. Now, what is interruption? Well, trip interruption is well, God forbid, something happens while you are on the trip and you need to get home mid-trip. If an emergency hits, anything like that, that's what trip interruption is for. They usually give you an extra 50% extra versus what you have covered for the whole trip for your trip interruption coverage as well. So say if you had a $5,000 policy for your trip, the interruption will cover up to $7,500 to get you back to where you need to get to. These are for like last minute single way airfares and even sometimes emergency routing. Now, the next really big thing you have to worry about when you're looking at insurance is exactly what is covered for medical, and sometimes you hear it as medical evacuation. Emergency medical usually ranges anywhere between $10,000 to $50,000 in coverage, while the emergency medical evacuation can range from anywhere from $50,000 to all the way up to $1 million in coverage. Basically, what medical does, it will pay the ship doctor for stitches, for onshore hospital stays. The tip is $10,000 is usually not a lot of money, especially if you have to visit an emergency room or go, God forbid, to an ICU room when you're on a trip in a foreign hospital. It's a low dollar amount. Now, evacuation, on the other hand, yeah, you might see a number of the $100,000 maximum range, but those helicopter rides can definitely get way above $100,000 if you have to be airlifted off the ship. So always think about these numbers when you see what your coverage is. Me personally, I don't want to deal with one of those giant bills from the helicopter. I make sure my medical evac is at least $500,000. And I also then take a look at my emergency medical and I want to make sure it's at least $50,000. Now, there's going to be some other coverages with your insurance. Some of them is going to be for baggage claims. Some of them is going to be for trip delay, so that you might be, hey, your plane's late or your plane gets canceled and you need to kind of just be in the airport for an extra day. And that's what travel delay is for. Or baggage. God forbid the baggage is delayed and you need your bags because you're getting on the ship and you don't have your bags anymore, or your airline might have lost the bags and you need to cover that lost baggage. Now, baggage coverage usually ranges around $1,000 to $2,000, but the trick is most of those things will have a maximum on the highest dollar amount you can charge per item if it's lost. So don't put your huge valuables in your checked baggage. Keep them with you in your check bags. Now, the other final thing you got to really look at when you're seeing your declaration page is, how is this insurance in the order of how things get paid out? Is it primary or is it secondary? Most travel insurance, especially for medical, is secondary. That means you're going to have to first put in your claim with your primary medical provider for your insurance. If that gets denied for whatever reason, you can then use your cruise insurance for its secondary coverage purposes. Another thing also just to remember too is you're going to usually still have to make this payment out of pocket and then make a claim, especially with travel insurance. Now, if you do have a big situation going on, you can call the travel company and see if you can get a binder with the provider who's giving you the medical attention so that they know that they will pay them. It's almost like a guarantee that they're going to pay the bill once you're done. So that's one thing you got to always look at though. Make sure you have enough cash available to you, whether it be on credit cards, etc., to pay the bill and then make your claim. Now, we did talk a little bit about cancellation portion of the insurance on the declaration page that covers if you don't even show up on your vacation. But there are different types of cancellation. There's the standard, right? You basically, someone in your family died, or you had a severe illness, or there is some severe weather or a mechanical breakdown or something happened to your home. Those are usually what is considered a standard reason for cancellation. And that's usually always covered from your travel insurance, no matter what. And you will get 100% of your cancellation fees back as cash when it's covered for a standard reason. And these standard policies with that type of cancellation usually ranges around anywhere between 4 to 8% of your total trip cost. Now, if you happen to be working in an industry where you can have your PTO suddenly pulled away from you, or you have some sort of mandatory call-in scenario, sudden layoffs, those type of things, you might want to look at something called cancel for work reason. That usually adds a little extra cost on top of your insurance. Now, cruise lines do not offer this by default, but we'll get into exactly what the cruise lines do give you when you purchase through them that will kind of cover this situation for you. But in general, when you're going through a third party and you get cancellation for a work reason, that usually adds another 10% to 15% on top of the normal standard cancellation reasons. Now, the final one is the most expensive one. This is called cancel for any reason. Now, this is because you changed your mind out of fear of what's going on in the world, an outbreak of some sort of virus. We all know about that, right? Or your pet gets sick, or any of those type of things where you just can't get to your cruise or to your travel. Now, the price tag for these cancel for any reason insurance is huge. It's usually anywhere between 30 to 50% more on top of the standard rate. So it does add a substantial extra cost to get this cancel for any reason policy, especially when you're going with third parties. Now, if you're going with the cruise line insurance policies, most of these already come with a cancel for any reason policy. And that's what I was alluding to before with cancel for work reason. If you purchase a cruise line policy, you don't have to worry about it because you get the higher level, the cancel for any reason policy. Now, what happens here though, is it's usually free when you purchase the cruise line's insurance, but you're not going to get cash back. You're going to get future cruise credits back. Now, if you do happen to have to use the cancel for any reason rider with your policy, the one thing you got to understand is you're not going to get 100% of your cash back if you purchased it through a third party, or 100% in future cruise credits with the cruise line. It's usually anywhere between 70 to 90% of that number. So now let's kind of think about how each one of these two different providers of insurance kind of handles their pricing model and what is usually done when a policy is executed and a claim is paid out. For third-party insurance people, first off, those things are heavily weighted to age and the total cost of the trip to get the policy amount. So if you're of a higher age group, it's going to be more. If the trip is costing you more, it's going to be more. It's just the way it works. For medical and evacuation limits, though, on these policies, they're going to be higher than what you normally find on a cruise line. You're going to see medical evacuations approaching $1 million, while medical coverage approaching $50,000. And finally, these are going to be always cash payments back out to you. Direct reimbursement once the claim is approved. Now, if you go with the cruise line does not factor in age with the cost of their premium. Basic thing is how much are you paying? And that's what it's going to be. It's usually a percentage based upon what you're paying. But the trade-off is usually your medical and medical evac limits are low. $10,000 for medical, $50,000 for medical evac. And finally, unless you're being covered for a standard reason of cancellation, it's not going to be cash. It'll be cash for standard cancellations. But if you're canceling for any other reason, such as, the dog is sick, etc., you're going to get future cruise credit. Now, there's another way you can purchase insurance other than an individual travel policy. An individual travel policy is for that one travel event. You can purchase travel insurance for an annual period of time. Basically, how this works is one policy covers all your travel for a period of 365 days, and it usually caps out no travel event can be more than 30 to 45 days. Now, these policies are heavily focused on medical coverage. They usually come with some very, very high medical limits, $500,000 to $1 million for evacuation and $50,000 for your medical coverage. While the cancellation side, you're being covered for a cancellation amount for the entire period of time, not per event of travel. So if you have a $5,000 annual policy, you're covered for $5,000 worth of cancellation fees for the full 365-day period. Now, there is an annual policy pricing advantage if you are an older person who's traveling, because the one thing to understand is those annual policies are not heavily influenced at all on the age. The premium is primarily based upon how much total cancellation for the year that's being covered. Annual policies are the best way to purchase insurance if you do travel more than 2 times a year. It will cover all your medical, and it basically is a good way to kind of avoid those age-biased policies that are for individual travel. In summary, you're going to want to make sure when you're purchasing your travel insurance, the declaration sheets. What exactly are you buying? How much cancellation? What happens if I cancel? Is there a cancel for any reason rider? How much percentage of that cancellation fees will come back to me if I cancel for any reason? How will that come back to me? Is it going to come back to me as cash or future cruise credit? Which also might come with additional requirements to use those future cruise credits. They might not last forever. They might only last for a year. Older travelers, you really kind of want to look heavily at those cruise line travel policies and maybe even look at a secondary policy to cover medical, because medical is not covered well with the cruise lines, but it will save you some money if you maybe split. And finally, take a look at what your credit cards offer for insurance. You don't want to over-insure, especially if you're using a good travel card that does come with some cancellation coverage for you, and you might just need something to handle medical for you. So there you go, folks. That is our primer on cruise insurance, travel insurance in general. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hey, give it a big thumbs up. It does help the YouTube algorithm. It does help this community grow. Thank you so much for doing that. And if you've been watching this long, think about subscribing, turn that notification bell on. This way you get notified every single time we put out a new tips video. So until we talk again, this is Rob from Cruise Seekers, reminding each and every one of you to always seek the seas. Bye now.